Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are objectively breaking down Mayor Zohran Mamdani's sweeping 2026 policy rollouts. We've all seen the headlines, right? The massive numbers, the intense political back and forth. But today, we are setting all of that aside. We're strictly looking at the data to answer one core question. What do these billions of dollars and new legal frameworks realistically mean for New York City, and more importantly, for your day-to-day life?
Here is our roadmap for today. First, the $22 billion housing push. 2, construction justice and labor. 3, NYC's capital funding plan. 4, the fast bus compromise. And finally, new consumer tech protections. Let's dive in.
Section 1. The $22 billion housing push. Yes, you heard that right, $22 billion. That staggering figure is the proposed capital funding for the city's housing plan spanning fiscal years 2026 through 2030. We're looking at one of the most ambitious housing targets in modern New York City history, funneling just massive public resources into tackling a supply and affordability crisis that has literally been decades in the making. This agenda really boils down to twin goals: dramatically scaling up the production of new units while stabilizing our existing stock to prevent displacement. $7 billion is earmarked specifically for new affordable housing development, getting shovels in the ground. Meanwhile, $4.9 billion is dedicated to preservation, which means keeping the buildings we already have livable and making sure current tenants can safely stand inside them. Now, for a realistic impact check, it's absolutely crucial to put these historic numbers into perspective. The mayor's original campaign pledge called for a $10 billion annual investment. The final blueprint we actually got delivers a $5.4 billion boost spread out over 5 years. So it's still a massive injection of cash for sure, but it reflects the pragmatic, grounded constraints of the city's budget when the rubber finally meets the road. Section 2. Construction justice and labor. You simply cannot build at this incredible scale without a massive workforce. This housing production alone is going to support an average of 30,000 construction jobs every single year. And once they're built, these homes will create over 12,000 permanent operations jobs. Because so much public money is driving this boom, establishing strict labor standards became an absolute urgent priority for both the City Council and the administration. Enter the Construction Justice Act. This newly passed legislation completely shifts the focus from just building fast to ensuring that the public resources being used actually guarantee family-sustaining work and safety for local residents. The Comptroller's Office is stepping in as the primary enforcer here, so developers who don't comply with wage standards or community hiring goals are going to face real financial penalties. It's a structural attempt to ensure the economic boom of affordable housing actually benefits the working-class New Yorkers doing the heavy lifting. Section 3. NYC's capital funding plan. We're looking at a total planned commitment of $7.78 billion from 2026 to 2030 to repair, modernize, and address urgent infrastructure needs across NYC's 335 developments. This money is coming together from a mix of federal, city, and state sources. It sounds like an astronomical sum, right? But to understand what it realistically accomplishes, we really have to look at the historical context. When you see the massive dips in federal capital funding since 2001, which represents a cumulative $1.4 billion shortfall, it completely contextualizes NYC's current physical decay. That massive $78 billion in total identified physical needs across the system didn't just happen overnight. It is the compounding interest of decades of deferred maintenance and missing federal dollars. Looking precisely at the $2.6 billion chipped in directly by the city, it becomes clear that the lion's share is realistically dedicated to just keeping the buildings standing and removing critical hazards. Over 61% goes purely to structural and exterior work, think roofs and brick facades. Another 20% goes to remediation, safely removing things like asbestos and lead. Let's be real, this isn't luxury modernization. This is fundamental triage to ensure basic habitability. And for another realistic impact check, we have to acknowledge that despite these massive cash injections into the capital plan, NYC's day-to-day operations remain on incredibly thin ice. They managed a balanced $5.6 billion operating budget for 2026, but it relies super heavily on one-time resources. The data shows that without a permanent new revenue stream, major fiscal pressures and structural deficits are going to roar right back by 2027. Section 4. The fast bus compromise. While universal free buses were arguably the most famous pillar of the mayor's campaign, governing brought a swift reality check. The MTA is a state-controlled entity, not a city-controlled one. So political and fiscal realities with Governor Hochul and MTA leadership resulted in a pragmatic compromise. The free bus push has been temporarily sidelined, and instead, the policy focus has completely shifted to speed and efficiency. So while the rides aren't free, everyday commuters should realistically experience tangible time savings. The Next Stop Fast Buses plan targets up to 6 minutes of time saved per route through operational changes like all-door boarding and advancing better bus lanes. Plus, the MTA is committing to 2,500 new buses. And it's definitely worth noting that the City Council expanded the Fair Fares program, meaning a lot more low-income New Yorkers now actually qualify for half-price transit. Section 5. New Consumer Tech Protections. Transitioning over to digital infrastructure, the city has launched something called the PIT Crew, or Public Interest Technology Crew. These deployment teams completely flip the bureaucratic model on its head. Instead of taking years to outsource IT projects, the city is using in-house tech experts to move new services from a basic idea to actual implementation in a matter of months. The very first major mission for these tech crews is building the portal to support the new click-to-cancel law. We've all been there, right? You sign up for a service online with 2 easy clicks, but when you want to cancel, you have to wait on hold for 45 minutes to talk to a retention specialist. Well, New York City is officially banning that. If a business lets you subscribe easily online, they now must provide a cancellation method that is equally simple. And if they don't, the city will start slapping them with fines starting at $525 per violation. This isn't just theoretical policy. It's an actionable digital right taking effect this October 1st. Because of predatory subscription models, everyday residents lose money every single month. By enforcing this new rule, the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection projects it will put up to $162.5 million directly back into the pockets of New Yorkers every single year. So, from scaling back housing budgets to settling for fast buses instead of free ones, to aggressively going after junk subscriptions, this administration's 2026 master plan is really defined by a collision between sky-high ambition and grounded bureaucratic reality. Thank you so much for joining this explainer. We'll leave you with this to consider. As these billions of dollars flow into the concrete and digital veins of New York, will these pragmatic compromises actually be enough to outpace the city's growing cost of living and truly transform your daily reality?